And welcome to the Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show on this Monday afternoon. Thank you for joining us on your lunchtime, or for those in the US while you're eating your breakfast, or for those out in Australia while you're having your evening meal. And today, joining me is Michael Crinnion. Now, why have I got Mike on the show? Because he's been on a journey. He's worked in design engineering. He's then taken his skills into education, built a career there, pastoral, well-being, making sure the next generation are looked after, are gaining the skills that they need to thrive in life. And that has taken quite a journey, quite a turn now, because he's now decided to set up his own business, Mind Body Goals, with the principle of helping people to really anchor into their own well-being, increasingly important over this past 12 months. But through his own challenges, through lots of the things he's seen working in different industries, he's decided to bring something together which aims to tackle a lot of the challenges we face in today's lives, our busy lives, slow us down a little bit and get us focused. And most importantly, make us self-aware entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers. So, yeah, I'd like to welcome to the show, Michael. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Michael, can you tell us a little bit about where you're currently at today before we delve into your interesting past?
Well, I'm in my bedroom. Where am I at today? So, thanks for the excellent intro as well. Like I was just saying, I need to record that. I write it down. It's excellent. So yeah, I've just started a business, like you say. So that was at Christmas. I mean, officially, it was only a couple of months ago that it was actually incorporated as a business. But really, since Christmas, I've been working on this full time. And yeah, like you said, I've developed a wellbeing product. I think we'll talk about that a bit more later, won't we? But it's a leap. It is a leap into entrepreneurship from working full time and the security of that. But it's exciting, and it's just gone a bit mad, really, over the last 3 months. Last time we spoke, I think I'd been in 3 meetings that morning, and it's just been like that. It's just been like that for weeks now. So, but it's awesome. It's amazing, and the positivity and the feedback and all the great things that people are saying about the product and what I'm trying to do is just, it's awesome, isn't it? It just gives you superpowers, I think.
Yeah, and you need to be, really positive about what you've managed to achieve so far. But like anything, the jump into entrepreneurship, it's not for everyone. And it comes with a lot of risk, and you need to be, passionate, but also clear on what you're looking to achieve. And obviously your experience working, across a range of different industries and bringing your skills in through different aspects has, helped shape you to a place where you felt ready to step into the business world. And suddenly you're surrounded by, investors, stakeholders, people looking to bring your products to life. And obviously it's really exciting times. But I want to wind that clock back. What was young Michael like?
I think he was a kind. I'm still kind, I think, but he was kind, but not now. Yeah, I think I was a kind child. I was a bit of a worrier.
Yeah,
to be honest, in hindsight, I was a worrier and a fixer. So, without wanting to bring everyone's lunchtime mood down too much, in a nutshell, I lost my dad at quite a young age. So when I was 7 years old, and it was fairly sudden. After a short illness, and that sort of threw me into a position of probably heightened responsibility within the family. So it was like me, my mum, and my 3 sisters, and I just felt really responsible. And so I think as a child, I was a bit of a worrier and a caregiver where I could be, and that could be for friends or family. But I've always been a bit of a daydreamer as well, and quite now that might have been partly the anxiety, honestly, but sort of away in my own bubble but I think quite creative as well. And in some ways, again, that comes, maybe anxiety is a form of creativity, to be honest, because you're imagining things that could be. But I was definitely a problem solver, and like my first words were "broke it," because I broke it, because I just take things apart, and I did it as a child, and You know, like I had my bedroom was wired up with an alarm system, which was made from an old birthday card. You know, the ones that you used to open.
Yeah.
So I pulled one of those apart, and I don't know. I was a creative warrior. There. If you got to sum it up in 2 words, I think that was me as a child.
Yeah, it's interesting to think how you apply that today, because obviously there was a level of curiosity there. It's always worthwhile thinking that anxiety isn't always the negative thing that it can be portrayed to be.
No,
it can really incite us to action, make us think differently. But I'm starting to see already how young Michael, who was caring, who was, you know, a dreamer, an idea generator, who was a breaker and put back together. Starting to see how maybe this has been shaped into, you know, those both career paths. As a design engineer, breaking things, creating things, coming up with ideas. In education, in pastoral and well-being, caring, looking after others, you know, giving yourself. But tell us a little bit about, you know, those 2 different career paths you've faced and some of the challenges along those journeys.
So I think, well, I'll do it chronologically. So I did design engineering. So I went through school, did design technology, did product design at A-level, and then did product design engineering at uni. And then went on to work as a junior designer. Just because I like making things, I like problem solving. And it occupies the right parts of my brain, I suppose. Like it fixing things or looking for problems or analysing what the problem is and then coming up with a new solution is just, I just find that really satisfying.
Yeah.
But working as a design engineer, when you work for other companies is not the dream.
Yeah.
That's me never getting another job as a design engineer. It's not though. It's not. It's you become a bit of a CAD monkey, you know, like you're just reiterating other things or rehashing them or making them cheaper or adding lights or you're not really problem solving. You don't really go through the design process. You produce products that usually have been generated through market research as opposed to problem solving. So I did that full time for a bit, and then as it happened, the company I was working for closed the design agency. That they just didn't need one, not a full design agency, and so I started working for myself, working with a chap called Richard Hall, who I'm actually working with at the moment on Luma. He was more astute than me at the time, so he was like, I'm going to start a business, which he's made into a huge success now. And at the time he needed a designer, so I started working for myself, and that was sort of my first, that's probably what's helped becoming, you know, an entrepreneur now is I have done it before to an extent, albeit with the cushion of working sort of alongside, although I'm doing that again now, to be fair, but the cushion of working alongside Richard. Well, he's experienced and he gives you confidence in that he knows what he's doing. So he's paid me to say that though, so so yeah, I worked for myself for a bit, but I think the transition to teaching came from it not really sort of, it wasn't soul quenching, it wasn't fulfilling. I was doing graphic design, I was doing web design, I was doing product visualization, I was exercising my creativity, and I was my own man, you know, I was doing it for myself, but something was still missing, and it was that caregiving element. It just wasn't there. And so in sort of 2009 I decided that I'd give teaching a go. Both my parents were teachers, and my uncle was a teacher, and there's just teaching in the family. So it happens though, doesn't it? You get these families. It does. So I volunteered a couple of days in the school that I went to as a kid, and was like, oh, this is great. Because design technology teacher was what I was thinking of doing. So I got to do both really. And I didn't really look back till now, really, like 10 years. Like I found that I got to do sharing knowledge is also really, well, I'm a know-it-all, I think, is what people would probably say. I don't mean to be. I really like sharing information or sharing generally. And if that's, you know, a better way to do something, I'm probably going to tell you.
That's why I invited you on. That's why I invited you on.
yeah. I'm going to tell you a few things. So, yeah, and I found that the pastoral system within education was where I really found my feet, because there's lots of problem solving there, and lots of caregiving, and you get to, and it is very fulfilling because you get to help. I think I stand by the statement, but I used to say it all the time when I was doing it. But when I was a head of year, so I did that for like 6 years. I think that's probably one of the most important seats that you can sit in if you want to affect change with kids, because it's you that get sent to, it's you that rings the parents, it's you that organizes and puts together any interventions that they need, or identifies whether they need of intervention. There's just so much in that job. It's a big, hard, difficult job, but there's a lot that comes back from it. But yeah, I think then ultimately I also started to see that there's only so much you can do from that chair. And being an engineer in my head, there's systems that you could do better, and there's different ways, and you sort of think, well, we could help this one kid, or we could change this and help twice as many, 3 times as many, 4 times as many. So I moved to another school and was vice principal there for about a year and a half. And we did lots of good stuff there and lots of changes, but the pandemic sort of slid in the middle, and it did, that changes everything. You've got to react. And we did I think we did a brilliant job. I think we were ahead of the curve on lots of stuff, particularly around caregiving and checking in on kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did that for about a year and a half, and still had this idea that maybe it wasn't the best fit for me. Like maybe, I wasn't going to get done what I thought I was going to get done in that seat. That's the best way of putting it. And all the while, I'd sort of been working on how do you support people's well-being remotely without directing them back to more screens.
Mm-hmm.
So I was responsible for that, for the staff in the school during lockdown, and it felt like everything that we sent out was, how you've just been sat at your laptop for 8 hours. Wow. A YouTube video on how to relax, and it doesn't make sense, does it? It's like trying to put out a fire with petrol.
I mean, the thing is, there are a lot of digital tools out there, and obviously it's being mindful from a digital well-being perspective. What are we drawing people back onto in terms of platforms when already there's high levels of stimulation caused by digital devices? But there is one thing I want to kind of say, Michael, and given that you've sat in a number of different seats, both in education and in design, you've now decided that you're going to carve your own stool and pull it up to the table by going out into the the entrepreneurial world. But what lessons have you pulled from being in those different seats that are now really helping you when you sat at the top table of business?
Insight, probably, into the actual problems. Like I don't believe in solutions to problems that don't exist. And I don't believe in solutions that are following market trends, or and so I think having worked from two angles really. So in product design, there's a tendency to add more all the time, like the new feature set, this, that, more. What can it do? Has it got 12 screens? And I've done the opposite really. I've gone the other way. I've gone, what's the least it can do, and do it well. So that's probably my design engineering background, and also just sort of my nature with things is to try and strip them back. And then I suppose because of the way my brain works, in that like always looking to try and fix things or make them more efficient, the whole time that I was in education, I think I was unpicking little bits. And now this sounds like it sounds negative. It's not. Schools are doing a great job. They're doing a brilliant job with what they've got. But what nearly all schools have is a shortage of two things, which is time and money. Mm-hmm. I've said it before, but there's no shortage of people in there that care about kids. Like you don't get into teaching unless you want to make a difference. You don't. But it'd be terrible, Jeff. Terrible job. You don't get into it for the money, do you? You don't think I feel like I'd like to be rich, so I thought I'll design future. I mean, you do it because you enjoy sharing, and you enjoy caregiving, and you enjoy sharing knowledge, and there's no shortage of those people.
Yeah.
But what's difficult, when even people can have great ideas, have we got time to implement it? Have we got the money to implement it? Where does it fit into the syllabus or curriculum? Like what is it? So what I'm trying to do with Luma is come up with a solution that is free as far as schools go, at least, and quick to implement with high impact. The other thing schools rightly care about is, we've done this, but what difference has it made? We need to see whether it was worth that member of staff's time or this outlay of money on our limited budgets. So I think it's threading together like simplicity and ease of implementation on something that can be given to schools for free, basically. That ticks a lot of boxes, I think, and fixes a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and it's a big piece, that, isn't it? And what you've done is you've created a minimum viable product, and then look to think what's the maximum impact. Because again, instead of making things more complex, you've actually simplified them for that ease of use, but also that value on investment. So we're not paying for the shiny add-ons, because the whole world is how can we make this more complex? How can we add more features? How can we, make it bigger and better for version 13?
Exactly.
And there's always product evolution, but it's actually always nice to start with something that does a simple job, that's accessible, that allows people to, ultimately be able to benefit very early on and see the, the return on their investment, whether it be in time, finance. And again, that's something that I'm a big proponent of, because complexity just becomes a barrier. It just becomes a device that does everything, rather than a device that's really anchored into achieving a specific aim. But what I want to quickly explore, Michael, is some of your own personal challenges on that journey.
I mean, I touched on probably the root cause of it. Early doors, losing dad, that and that sort of age as well. It does have an impact. Obviously, it does. You don't know the impact though until you're an adult. I don't think, or I mean maybe now, because we've got much better services in schools now. So, but it was 89. So I maybe I got a cuddle, and then they were like, right, it's maths now. So that might be a bit unfair to the school that I was in, because honestly it was a long time ago, but I know that there wasn't a lot of specific care, so it manifests as anxiety. Now you just live with it, particularly as a teenager. Now when you're at home, you've got a good comfort blanket, really. You've got a support network, and your life's what it is, and you don't really question it, because you're on this sort of conveyor belt, aren't you? You go to school, you go to college next, and then you go to uni next, if that's what your plan is. And I think I got about halfway through uni and have you read about, you will have done, I'll bet, but have you read about the quarter life crisis? Like, so
I was there.
I'm pretty certain that's what happened. Like, it's for anyone who doesn't know though, like, it's midlife crisis is well known, sort of classic. What have I done, like, with my life? Have I made the right choices, or have I done enough, or have I made? Well, quarter life crisis is what should I do? Like, there's all these different routes that you can take, and you're away from home. I was a worrier. I was at uni, not looking after myself at all, not doing any of the things that I do now or had done before to look after myself: diet, exercise, drinking water, like terrible stuff. Like, if I was a plant, I would have died. Like, it would. Didn't look after myself, so had a bit of a breakdown really at uni. I had a good conversation with someone recently who's doing their masters on sort of complementary therapies, and she taught me a phrase which I think's amazing: total ego annihilation. Have
Yeah.
Sounds severe, doesn't it? But I think that's what happened, to be honest, because I was outgoing, I was confident, I was, always up for fun at uni, and the wheels just totally came off, and I just became an anxious shadow of myself, and it were bad. Like I was just like longing for it to just reverse somehow. Like there must be an undo button here somewhere.
Yeah.
Like it's
what? I think a lot of students go through that experience.
So many.
Especially over this past year. But you're quite confident. You've probably got some underlying anxieties. But you go out probably to a big city. You submerge yourself in new social circles, in new committees, in new groups, and then all of a sudden you just start to realize that actually I feel a little bit incapable of looking after myself.
Yeah,
I'm not the big personality that I used to be in the little town that I've come from.
Right.
And like you say, your breeze block inside of you just gets a sledgehammer to it, and you end up in pieces.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a difficult experience. But how have you then brought that round as an adult and come through out the other side to be who you are today?
It was not easily, to be honest. It were quite a long journey. So I finished my degree, and I got a lot of support from I was at the University of Huddersfield, and I was fortunate that they had pretty good support there. So I went through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I know is falling out of fashion, but I'm still I think it helped me an awful lot. It appealed to my brain, like the engineering side of things. So unpicking the sort of thought feeling link and behavior and what that does, and that's how that feeling makes you think, and then you behave this way, and that makes it worse. And so I did CBT, and mindfulness, which was just catching on, I would say, around then. I'm sure it's been around a long time, but mindfulness practice, and it's as a complementary therapy to CBT. And so really it was those two things as from a intervention point of view. And then I just had really good friends at the time. Like I was living with some really great people that were just so compassionate and patient. And that you can't say anything more really. Like that was massive as well. So I finished my degree. I did just slightly less than my first, which was annoying, but I was pretty happy, like given the circumstances. And then that sort of picks up what I was saying before about leaving and working in design. And then working for myself. I don't know whether working for myself at that time was actually a really helpful thing for my mental health, actually, because you spend a lot of time alone, don't you? When you're self-employed. But it did give me, I suppose, what it forced me to do was learn that I maybe wasn't great at in the first place, which is to sort of self-soothe and self-reassure. And I talk a lot about, I used to do it when I was teaching, and recently, like evidence building, which is part of CBT, isn't it? So learning how to manage your current thinking based on past successes, But the other major thing, like the sort of emergency chord, is breathing for me, is conscious breathing, and learning about mindful breathing, and learning actually about the science behind it. So I think that was the pen drop for me. I was like, oh, this is like genuinely like a video game cheat code.
That's a lovely way to put it. Oh,
it is, isn't it? I was like, why did no one show me this before? Like,
just take it for granted, because it's one of those things we just do automatically, and because it's programmed in as a kind of default exercise. We just do it because, well, we do it and we don't consciously think about it, because we'll do it anyway. And we'll never be grateful for how powerful a tool it is until we actually start using it.
Exactly.
And I think that alludes nicely into, Michael, given that, you're an anxious individual, and that has both fueled you and potentially limited you at times. But for someone in a similar situation to yourself, who's been out in industry, picked up a lot of knowledge, handles a lot of expertise, but is a little bit anxious about maybe taking all that value out, stepping out and starting a business, what advice would you give to
them? Purpose. Like finding purpose, finding your purpose. So like, I think what I realized whilst still in education, and also since, because when you do leave a job, there's a long reflection period where you go,
yep.
But I think what I realized was that all along that there was the thing that I was really trying to push for wasn't a specific role or a specific job. It was a kind of drive for change and a drive to help people, and also a drive to sort of use what I had in the most effective way that I could. And I think if you're in a job and you've got a passion or a purpose and the job isn't helping you to fulfill that, then, and you can see a way that you might be able to by doing something differently, then if you can afford to, or it's sensible, then go do it. You know, like it. This is a cliche, and I say this more than I should, but I don't think that you often regret things that you choose to do. There are exceptions to that, obviously, but I think big life regrets tend to be missed opportunities. I think they're the harder ones to manage afterwards. You know, so anything you do, for right or wrong, there's a way to learn from that, and it be something positive. It was growth mindset, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's massive, Mike, you know, because again, when they did those studies on people's regrets, when they were, you know, in the unfortunate position of passing away, the biggest one always came. The people regretted a lot more what they didn't do, but had thought about, rather than the things that they did and they were mistakes. Right. And that's just a natural human kind of thing, because we'll never be able to see what obstacles we might have faced, the opportunities that might have come our way, the possibilities that might have opened up from doing that. And obviously, again, that's all a reason to take an educated step out, to maybe find something more meaningful. But if you're already doing something meaningful, it's remembering that entrepreneurialism, not that long ago, wasn't fashionable, wasn't the suggested thing to do. Our educational systems are not designed to shape people for that. In recent times, it has become a lot more fashionable, but hustling for a living isn't always the coolest thing to do. And for some people, it's just not gonna, you know, be fun. It's actually very challenging. You're using lots of constituent bits of a skill set, and that in itself requires, you know, being a little bit of a beginner at times, not being a know-it-all, but being able to really see where you can bring value, what you enjoy, how you can monetize that and bring value to the world, and then how you can use your strengths to do something that makes a difference. So on that note, Michael, you've harnessed all this experience, all the things you enjoy, all this purpose. What has that now become?
So that's now become the product that I've developed. So that's Luma Cube. I've got it here, actually, obviously. It's just sitting here glowing away. So effectively what we're doing here is, or what I've done is to produce a product that can guide you with conscious breathing. So it's doing that without the use of screens, as because we've alluded to why I don't think that that's the right solution. In a sort of high design, high quality product. So it's got an oak base and polycarbonate shell. And it's as simple as, you can see, it doesn't come out very well on webcam, to be quite honest, but you can see there how the light sinks down and then it pulses, and then how it rises up. And this will come, when you buy it, with sort of short guide videos on the principles of conscious breathing. So where you should be breathing, through your nose, how your posture, but very little, you know, because what I'm saying is trying to bring it all the way down to the basics. And then this product, so it sits with you whilst you're working, and then doesn't fuss you. It just sits to one side looking nice. And then every 55 minutes, it'll light up. And then that's your prompt that you've been sat at your screen or your Zoom call or your LinkedIn Live for an hour or a little less. And it's saying you should take a break now, just a short one. And then so you pick it up and you choose one of 4 different breathing exercises, and then it leads you through it without adding to your information overload.
Yes.
So, I mean, those are the two main purposes of it: to help you structure your day with small breaks, and then to give you something that's scientifically proven to be beneficial and reduce stress to do in that 5 minutes without any wind up time or like lead in or barriers to entry. So, sure, your watch might nag you to breathe, and I hear that a lot. They're like, "Well, my Apple Watch tells me to breathe all the time," and I'm like, "And do you?" Well, no, because and you
What
put
time is it? Oh, yeah, that time.
and then there's a notification, and then there's an email, and then you've got to go into the app, and then you've got to select it. Whereas this is you literally pick it up and it's ready to go straight away. And it's the antithesis of screens. Like the whole point is you're getting away from them. You'll know the psychology on it better probably than I do, but you know, if you're in a flow, if you're working and you do something else that distracts you or changes your thought direction, it takes sort of 26, I think it's 25, 26 minutes in order to get back to that same level of flow and concentration and productivity.
Yeah,
that's when you break away with something distracting. But if you break away for something that allows your brain to stay where it was but rest for a few minutes, you can go back to that activity, not have that same pickup time, but definitely be calmer and more focused because you will have been doing conscious breathing for 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then so the business then behind it is that a lot of people are working from home now. A lot of people are moving to hybrid working, and a lot of businesses are spending rightfully a portion or keeping a portion of the budget for that well-being.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do with Luma and with Mind Body Goals is to sell these products to individuals that want them for themselves and businesses that want them for their staff. And then through the 10-to-1 initiative, for every 10 of them that we sell, we're going to give one to a school for free with all of the resources that they would need in order to be up and running with it very quickly. And then in a school environment, there's lots of applications. So it could be part of the curriculum. So it could be a teaching aid to teach children about conscious breathing, how it works, why it works, how to do it in a education context, as in here's the facts about your body and what this does to it. It can also form part of a mental health first aid kit. That could be in the office as well. So like we're so used to this concept of having trained first aiders and a first aid kit. And now thankfully we've got mental health first aid, and it's catching on really like wildfire, isn't it, in business, which is amazing.
Yes. It's a big thing, Michael. And you know what? This is a product that obviously is part of that toolkit.
Right.
So it's kind of looking at it, and obviously at the moment it's actually being funded and being invested in. So what we'll do is we'll actually drop the link to the crowdfunding and showcase that, because you'll be able to find a lot more information about the product, the spec, the way that it's going to give back into schools, but also as a potential option for home workers and for schools themselves to invest in, both as an educational tool and as an ability to really start to approach conscious breathing as a skill that children can build, that they'll be able to use for the rest of their lives in situations where they can regain levels of control, they can improve the performance, they can increase their attention, and they can reduce anxiety and stresses. So
and then they take that then. That's the same as having learned trigonometry and then becoming an engineer as an adult. And so you learn those skills as a child and they become part of what you understand about the world. Well, we should be doing more of that in education. We should be teaching children how to manage themselves.
Massively so. And I agree, Michael. And what I want to now know is we're coming towards the end of the show, and obviously people are now, getting a good wide vision of Luma. The link has been put in the chat on LinkedIn. Thank you for Victoria. And more than anything, Michael, what I want to say is we now know the product, we know the journey, we know the story to get there, we know some of the challenges you've faced. What is the big vision? What do you want to achieve? What will be your legacy?
That's such a big question, isn't it? What will be my legacy? I've said before, I want this to become part of the momentum and the paradigm shift to well-being being integral to both schools and the workplace. Like, it's great that it's become high profile now, but there is a tendency, I think, because it's reasonably new, to be thinking about it, for it to become an agenda point on a meeting, as opposed to just a cultural thing that affects all agenda points. You know, if you're making any decision, you're making a decision about well-being somewhere, I imagine. And so it shouldn't be, well, we'll make this, here's a decision, here's a decision, here's a decision, and then at the end, what should we do about well-being? Well, we're going to do that on Thursday. No. It needs to be everything you're thinking about. You need to be thinking about the well-being of your staff, or if you're school, the well-being of your staff and your children. And, you know, a product like Luma is just, I suppose, the start of what I want to be able to do, which is make it up front and center. You know, you've got one of these on every desk in a workplace. That makes taking a 4 or 5 minute break more than acceptable. You know, it's almost expected. I want you to look after yourself, because you're going to be more productive and happier, and that's better for everybody. So it's that, really. The big picture is that looking after yourself and others around you becomes, you know, paramount, really, in terms of leadership.
Yeah, and you want to, the big vision is you want to increase that culture of care, and really be a little star on that matrix of well-being for future generations. You know, having been part of that shift. So again, Michael, I want to thank you for joining me on the Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show today. You know, your story really resonated a lot of people. You know, there's been some stats and chat in the box on LinkedIn around looking at a lot of people really struggle to find meaning and purpose in the work that they do. And that is something that we'll dig into more on a future episode. But again, thank you for joining me today, Michael. We'll be back with the show on Wednesday with the Energy Queen, Sue Winsbury. So join me at 12:30 UK time for that. And once again, thanks for tuning in. And thank you to Michael for being my guest today.
Nice one. Thanks for